Oh, away the lads. How are you doing? Right. So, I had a bit of an adverse reaction when I was given the title, the sort of the child, getting away from the child thing, because one of the things about being a dad for me was always to retain the child, was to retain that sense of joy and fun and to love being a dad, to love being with my boys, and to try and make the most of those moments. So, but really, it's not about being childlike, is it? It's the difference between being childish and childlike. So we're called to be childlike. Jesus says to enter the kingdom, you have to be like little children. But at the same time, we're not called to be childish, and it's understanding the difference between those two things. So I thought a bit about the point, really, where my life changed. And at this stage, I kind of feel like I barely remember what it was like to be a child. Most of the important stuff has happened since I met my wife and had my children. And so that has kind of formed, I think, the person who I am now. And my childhood was something that was quite painful and seems like a long while ago, if you know what I mean. And I know everyone has different experiences, but perhaps I could tell you a little bit about that. So I'll give you a bit of background. My family, I was born in England, but my mum is Irish. There we go. Thank you very much. And but we spent we sort of spent summers in the west of Ireland, and we spent the rest of the time in the East End of London, really, around the Isle of Dogs. And my dad was an only child. He was born during the war, so my childhood was replete with stories of them rowing across the Thames dramatically and bombers, trying to drop bombs on them and stuff like that. But he wasn't a Christian in any sort of sense of the word, really. Then he did convert to Catholicism. I can remember the time, but I also remember he refused to go to any RCIA or anything like that. So he didn't have any idea about what it meant to be a Christian. And like a lot of the things that when I look back on it now, it was about power and status. There was a lot of that sort of stuff going on. So really, my life started when I got married to Louise in 1995. And then the second picture there is when William, you might have met William, he's sat at the back there or somewhere. There he is at the back there. That's when he was first born. And my life has moved now to a place where we're in this, wonderful family. And it's not to say we don't have our struggles like everyone does, but basically it's such a great place to be. And like the story I was telling yesterday of the atheist Satanist guy who gave that interview, who was saying that he thought that he was on the edgy side of good, if you like, in a bizarre sort of weird way. And he found out at a certain point in his life that actually he was looking across at his Christian friends, or the friends that he had who maintained that Christian belief, and he saw that they were the good guys, and he realised that actually he was on the side of destruction. And so I think that it's in building the family, it's in that we find our true vocation as fathers. It's such a beautiful, powerful, wonderful thing to be men and to have children. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that, really. So the phrase putting aside childish things resonates deeply with the Catholic understanding of maturity, particularly in the context of fatherhood. In 1 Corinthians 13:11, which is sort of our jumping off point, isn't it, for this conference, St. Paul speaks of the transition from childhood to adulthood, emphasising the need to move beyond immature behaviours and thoughts. This transition is not often obvious today in a world of computer games and pornography, appropriate time for you to enter the room, Mrs. Bennett. And yet, it is essential for genuine maturity and for significant aspects of responsible fatherhood. Catholic teaching highlights that true maturity involves developing a profound understanding of one's responsibilities and the ability to guide others, especially children. This begins with an understanding of morality and virtue and the need to cultivate it for various reasons, which often don't become truly evident until much later in life. And I think we had a question to Gavin about that. You know, how do we transmit the importance of these things to our young children? It's not always evident when you're 18. When you get to 50, all of a sudden it's like you realise how important it is. And we have to understand that there's a process of maturation going on, and we can't expect our children to benefit from all that wisdom so early on. But that's the great gift that we're trying to give them, isn't it? Through teaching them the faith. So the Catechism puts it like this. Parents have the first responsibility for the education of their children. They bear witness to this responsibility first by creating a home where tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and disinterested service are the rule. The home is well suited for education in the virtues. This requires an apprenticeship in self-denial, sound judgment, and self-mastery, the preconditions of all true freedom. Parents should teach their children to be subordinate to the material and instinctual dimensions to interior and spiritual ones. Parents have a grave responsibility to give good example to their children. By knowing how to acknowledge their own failings to their children, parents will be better able to guide and correct them. He who loves his son will not spare the rod. He who disciplines his son will profit by him. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Moreover, as children grow, they must be encouraged to develop their own unique vocations and spiritual autonomy, which reflects a mature understanding of family dynamics. Fathers in particular are asked with not only providing for their children's physical needs, but also nurturing their spiritual growth, thereby preparing them to put aside childish things as they mature. This is explained beautifully, I think, in the Catechism of the Catholic Ukrainian Church, which says, "The good of the child is the highest aim of responsible parenthood. Therefore, parents cannot regard children as their property or use them solely as a means to achieve some other aim. Rather, every child has the natural right to be born and raised in a genuine family. The best means of raising a child is through the parent's example of mature Christian behaviour, as well as through the parent's relationship with each other and with other members of their family and society." So in this light, the connection between putting aside childish things and genuine maturity is rooted in the understanding that maturity involves a commitment to personal growth and the development of one's responsibilities, a sacrificial dimension and determination to will the good of those you are responsible for above all else. As fathers, we are called to guide our children through this process. This doesn't mean indiscriminately giving our children whatever they desire or want, but rather taking sometimes tough decisions to ensure that they grow into individuals who can also embrace their responsibilities and spiritual callings. I remember a friend of mine once saying to me that the way you parent a daughter, the way you father a daughter, will be the kind of man she's looking for when she looks to get married. Think about how massive that is, and what your responsibility then becomes. And the same thing with your sons. The way you treat your wife will be the way that they treat their wives in the future. So through everything we do, it's really important that we model correct behaviour. And it's not that we all know we don't know the answers to these things immediately, right? No one's, it's not something that suddenly pops into your head. It's something that we have to learn, and it's a habit of virtue that we have to practice. Okay, so moving on to the damage caused by infidelity and abandonment. I remember a particularly difficult conversation I had with a family member a couple of years ago who was going through some serious marital difficulties. We were talking about divorce and marital breakup, and he said, kind of out of the blue, the kids get over it quickly though, don't they? Kids are resilient, right? And, when you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're so upset by something someone says, I think the prominence of the prohibition against adultery in the Decalogue, in the Ten Commandments, gives us an initial and immediate reflection of the seriousness with which God treats this sin and the huge consequences it has for family life. Jesus reinforces the seriousness of this commandment as he expands its meaning to include even lustful thoughts, indicating that the roots of adultery lie in the heart. This highlights that the moral implications of marital infidelity extend beyond physical actions to encompass one's intentions and desires. It is thus a critical safeguard for the unity and indissolubility of marriage, which is a reflection of God's design for human relationships. The seriousness attributed to adultery in the Decalogue serves as a divine reminder of the sacredness of the marital bond and the profound consequences that arrive from its violation. Consequences which I have experienced firsthand, and I know many of us have experienced that. But not so much as a young child, although there were a lot of the obvious problems were there in my relationship with my father and in my familial relationship with my father, who seemed to consistently use his power and authority we gave him as his children, and my mum did as his wife, to try and undermine our relationships with each other. And that culminated in a situation where I think he was having affairs consistently through as I was growing up. He was kind of absent, and very sadly, I think probably the biggest memory I've got of my dad as a child is him not talking to me. I mean, I'm talking about, this big, and, not talking to me for long periods of time without explanation, and sort of pushing notes of apology under the handwritten notes under the bedroom door, desperate to try and be reconciled in some way. And it was a reconciliation that never came forth. It was always a case of him saying, when you learn, and me thinking, what am I supposed to be learning? I don't know, because there was no connection between his behaviour really and the way that he was treating us. But anyway, it wasn't until I was 30 that he actually finally left, when he had an affair we were working together. He'd kind of come to the end of his career, and I'd started up a business that had really been quite successful, and he'd decided that, he wanted to be involved in this business. And then he had an affair with the girl who was doing the typing, who was my age, and it was very difficult, as you can imagine. But it was a case of, even at that point, all I ever wanted. So these are all the emotions that I'm bringing to this discussion. All I ever wanted, despite the way that we were treated, or I felt I was treated as a child, was for my dad to love me. So that was constantly the motivation. But that it never really came forward. And in the end, it was, can we really believe that he's doing this? Can we really believe that this is going on? And everyone in the family felt the same way. And in the end, I sort of followed him when he left the office and he was going around this woman's house. And then there was the confrontation, the denial. There was horrible arguments. He was pretending that it wasn't going on, but we knew it was going on. The girl was turning up to the office. Suddenly she had a BMW and all this stuff. So he was taking money from the business and giving it to this girl. I was like just 30 or 28, 29, something like that at the time. And eventually, I can't remember, there was an Amiga point, there was something that happened, and he broke and admitted that this was what was going on. But even at that point, there was an attempt to sort of control us, to take everything. So he basically emptied all my mum and dad's bank accounts, took all the assets, tried to get her kicked out of the house. So there was incredible pain trying to deal with those things. I was trying to run a business, look after my mum, who was absolutely devastated and had refused to recognise what was going on. And at the same time, my dad was saying, what about me, and all this sort of stuff, while he was booking cruises to go off with this girl. So even though I wasn't a little boy, I was a grown man, and I had my own family at that point, that it was completely devastating for me. And it was completely devastating for my family. And it has resulted in none of the siblings really talking to each other. Like the division that was sown it properly came to fruit then. My mum is like not the same person that she was. She's 80 now, so it's, we've had a good amount of time to sort of deal with it. But the point that I'm trying to get across is it broke the family, even at that point. So 30 years of marriage, and he walked out, and it broke the family. And then there was the recriminations of what has been going on, what's been going on all this time. And then mum is going through all this stuff, sort of looking at all these experiences, reminiscing about all these occasions when it seemed like he was, likely having different affairs with different women. So how did that affect me as a father? Now, I think a lot of people, we talk about the father wound and all this sort of stuff, and we've talked about it in Catholic Man UK before. And for some people, I know I do a Bible study class at the Baptist church once a week, and I know there's people there who have been so damaged by their fathers that they had a real problem coming to Christ and recognising God the Father, because there was that. So I think that speaks to the importance of fatherhood as well. But for me, it was an absolute commitment to not having that same experience with my children. It was an absolute commitment to being, whatever the problems were with my father, I was determined to be the opposite way with my children. And thanks be to God, I think at this stage now, I feel like to some extent, it's never perfect, but, I have succeeded. I feel that I've built, as the father of my family, with 5 children, we've built a strong unit, thanks be to God. And that is because people have said to me, how have you done that? How are you still talking to the kids? And it's because of the faith. It's grounding everything in our Catholic faith that makes all the difference, really. So, how do we go about it? Oh, I don't know how Luca got in there. It's not really a call to maturity, is it? Let's try something else. There you go. Put away childish things, says St. Paul. So when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things, including inflatable anime figures. This verse is part of a broader, profound discussion, as you know, on love, maturity, and spiritual growth. Paul addresses the transition from spiritual immaturity to maturity using the imagery of growing from childhood into adulthood. This growth symbolises the Christian's journey from self-centred desires and immature attitudes to mature, self-giving love that mirrors Christ's. So as Sam was saying, it's moving from that, what about me? When is it my turn? That's not fair, to an attitude of service and sacrifice. Paul's metaphor of putting away childish things implies leaving behind impulsive, self-centred inclinations typical of a child, such as quick anger, jealousy, selfishness. Instead, men are called to develop virtues such as faithfulness, responsibility, and resilience. In childhood, it's natural to prioritise one's own needs. But in adulthood, Scripture guides men towards selflessness and responsibility in relationships, work, and faith. Through Through faith, Paul encourages maturity rooted in the love described earlier in this chapter, love that is patient, kind, free of envy. This love requires strength in adversity and an endurance through difficulties, fostering a steadfastness that goes beyond individual desire. In marriage, family, and community, men are called to act with integrity and to uphold our commitments, bearing life's challenges with a sense of duty and courage. In this way, Scripture's guidance to put away childish things isn't simply about growing up physically or emotionally. It's a call to mature in faith, embracing a life orientated towards God and others. This is not always immediately obvious to us as we grow up. We assert our own desires. We want to know when it will be our turn to relax, to shirk our responsibilities, to indulge our own selfishness. Just like all the virtues, commitment, sacrifice, fidelity require practice. But together, these elements create a robust foundation for family life. They cultivate an environment of trust and mutual respect that allows each member to truly thrive. It is through the practice of these virtues that the family unit is strengthened and enhanced, but they also affirm the dignity of the father as a loving and responsible man. So being a Catholic is about not simply doing what your dad did if you were hurt by your dad or your relationship with your father. It's understanding where the gaps are and filling in those gaps with the Father, with our Heavenly Father's love. It's about recognizing what our responsibilities are and nurturing those virtues in our lives, yeah? So one of the main problems that we encounter, I don't know if you're Game of Thrones fans, but this quote from Jon Snow, kill the boy, or, well, it's actually not, it's the Maester at Castle Black, who says, kill the boy, Jon Snow, winter is upon us, kill the boy and let the man be born. And it is a challenge, isn't it? You know, it's a real challenge to let go of, to not play the Xbox, John. And, you know, these things are a challenge for us. So we have to try and find a way of refocusing our energy and our will and our desire on the things that matter to us most. Because it's only through putting in that effort into our marriage, into our relationships with our children, that we will see the results that we all want to see, and we all want to see those results. We all want to have strong families. We all want our children to grow up to be the best that they can be, to experience life in its fullest sense. And so it's down to us then to examine our lives and to see where the gaps are and to fill in those gaps. So stop for a minute now and examine your own lives. Think about what things you spend time and energy on that serve only your pleasure and aren't at the service of your family. Is anyone brave enough to give me an example? Yes, I know the Xbox, John. Anything else?
Raising my hand.
Yes.
Golf.
Right.
For a lot of blokes, it's a bit of brotherhood. They grow around great friends, and then when they enter marriage, they can't shake off childish pursuits, be football on a Saturdays. I think most men in England would be, that would be a big voice, would be football on a Saturday, and then the lad culture that comes with it.
Well, I remember when I was first married, I have to say, it took me a long while, right, to get any of this in any way right. And it's only really, please God, I'm there now. But exactly as you say, I think that was the worst thing for me was I had some great mates and I loved going out with them. And if they got on the phone and said, right, we're going down the pub, I would be down the pub. And I would not be out of the pub until the pub closed or whatever. And, we had some great times. But it took me years to figure out how much pain that was causing my wife, and the difference between going out for a couple of pints and going out for 8 pints, and coming in at ridiculous o'clock. Well, I didn't want to embellish the gild the lily there, Paul. No, But you get the point, yeah? So it's moderation, and I suppose for everyone, we've all got our own things, haven't we, you know? But it's recognising that when you're in a relationship like that, when you're married to someone, you're at their service. I think that's the hardest thing to grasp. And I've got a really good friend who I studied theology with, and her dad was a really wise man. And we were talking about love in the context of ecclesiology one day. And he said to me, you know, love isn't about what you get, it's about what you're prepared to sacrifice. And I thought that was such a profound thing, you know, that when you make those marriage vows, this is what you're promising, yeah? And that the best way that you can live your life as a man is to be in service to your wife and your children. Okay. So the idea of giving time and putting your family and home responsibilities first is central, really, to a successful marriage. That doesn't mean that we can't go to football or we can't do things, you know, we can't do good things, but it's knowing where our focus is, especially when you've got children. And I think too often we end up in a situation where we leave our wives to bring up the children, and, you know, we've got warfare, we have to go out to war, we've got to go to work or whatever, and when you come home, you know, you just want to veg out in front of the fire or, you know, the telly or whatever, and you forget. And so, you're abandoning those children, really, and you need to step up big time, because there's nothing as rewarding as spending time with your kids. Trust me on this. It really is the best thing that you can do. So how do we're going to switch over now and start talking about tools that, I just thought this was a lovely, if you are a father, this might resonate for you. It resonates for me. When a father, I don't ever read out slides, but I'm going to read this one. When a father gives to his son, both laugh. When a son gives to his father, both cry. So for me, that speaks to the fact that when, you know, if your son gives something back to you, he's got it. He's understood. He's being of service, isn't he? You know, he's learnt that important lesson, and the circle has come full round, really. After, you know, when they're kids, you do everything for them, don't you? You're the shield. You're the one who'd give up everything, give up your life for your children. And then when you get to a point where your children start giving something back to you, that's a wonderful gift, a really wonderful gift. So, as Sam said earlier, we turn to St. Joseph. Iter ad Joseph is the Latin. St. Joseph is the model of a man caring for his family selflessly, and we can emulate him by considering these key virtues. Number one, model of humility and service. St. Joseph exemplified humility and selfless attitude in his role as the earthly father of Jesus. He's recognised for his dedication to hard work and family, which reflects the values of diligence and integrity in providing for loved ones. Men can adopt a similar approach by prioritising the needs of their families and serving them with love and commitment. 2, faith and trust in God. St. Joseph's life was marked by a profound faith and trust in God's plan, accepting his role in the divine mystery with obedience. As men, we can emulate this by fostering a strong spiritual foundation, trusting in God's guidance, and being open to the responsibilities that come with family life. 3, paternal authority and love. St. Joseph exercised his paternal authority with love and care, ensuring the well-being of Mary and Jesus. Men are encouraged to lead their families with a loving presence, respecting and cherishing their spouses, and nurturing their children in a way that reflects God's love. Daily commitment and hard work. St. Joseph's life as a carpenter illustrates the importance of hard work and daily commitment to family needs. Men can take inspiration from his example by engaging in their work with dedication, understanding that their labour contributes to the stability and happiness of their families. And finally, protection and guidance. As the guardian of the Holy Family, St. Joseph provided protection and guidance. And we can emulate this by being vigilant and supportive, ensuring our families feel safe and secure, and guiding them through life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. By integrating these virtues into our daily lives, we can follow St. Joseph's example and foster a nurturing, selfless environment for our families. We all fail, we all get this wrong, but recognising our fall and refusing to give up and going to St. Joseph, praying the litany of St. Joseph, and seeking his intercession to cultivate integrity, patience, and courage. So there's a real power to fostering manhood through structure. Okay? The little quote there, if it's too small for you to see, is the family that prays together stays together, yeah? So make sure that there is space in your lives to pray together. And that might be as simple as saying grace before meals, but pray the rosary as a family every day. You know, there are lots of different things you can do. You can look at the readings together. The most thing that I found worked for me growing up was we had a couple of dogs and we'd walk the dogs. Like I'd walk the dogs with the kids, and Lou, my wife, would come with me most times as well. And that gave us a space as a family to talk. And we'd talk, it was amazing. Like, it's such a simple thing, isn't it, you know? But every day we'd go for a walk for an hour or so, and that gives your children the space to bring concerns. They will bring those concerns to you, and they're not distracted by their phones or the telly or books or anything like that. And so they can come to you, the Xbox, John, and they can come to you. They can come to you with their concerns, and they will talk these things through with you. And that gives you an opportunity then, doesn't it, to inject some wisdom and perspective and to bring everything back down to faith. But the most important thing, I would say, is what we used to call Catholic adventures. So we, you know, if there was something going on in London or somewhere, you know, anywhere that we could get to, a special mass, a cardinal visiting, someone talking or something like that, we'd go on an adventure and we'd go and so it made the faith exciting, yeah, because it was like someone special. I remember when Cardinal Burke came to the SPUC Pro-Life conference in Liverpool, and I took my second son, Mike, and we stayed in a hotel, and, you know, it was an amazing experience. But loads of occasions when we've gone to London for a book launch, or we've gone because, you know, some cardinal was saying mass or something like that at Corpus Christi, there are lots of opportunities to go, and it makes like you're showing them the beauty of the faith, rather than going, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, like, go to Mass every Sunday. Please do go to Mass every Sunday. But going on holiday and going to different churches, making sure, you know, we were booking holidays, Lou and I, and going, right, where are we going to go to Mass? You know, that would be the central thing to where we were going. Pick the best, you know, like the most beautiful church and everything that we could. And the children grew up with that, with the glory of the Catholic faith. You know, in Seville and Florence and Rome, and, you know, it was something exciting, something to visit. Although I remember when Will and Mike were very small, before we had any more children, we went into the Duomo in Florence, which, if you know, is absolutely magnificent. You walk into the piazza and it's just like glorious. And as we rounded the corner, I think it was Michael went, oh, not another church. But he went on to study history of art, and, you know, he's crazy about it. Like, he's crazy about all that stuff now. So, and grateful for those experiences. So I can remember dragging him up the, you know, up the cupola. Anyway. So order, prayer, and work in daily life. So this is specifically for us. You know, we have to build these rhythms into our lives. We have to build these rhythms into our lives as well. So, you know, even if the timings are off or something and you can't pray, make sure that you pray. Make sure that you get into the habit of saying your night prayers. Get up in the morning, even if you just say, thank you, Lord, for another day. Thank you for another chance You know, if you make the sign of the cross, if start your day off with a morning offering. Sometimes we try too hard, don't we? You know, have you seen that Exodus 90? Has anyone done that Exodus 90? Yeah, good man. I'm like, no, that's not my type of Catholicism. Thanks very much. I'm with Hilar Belloc, you know, wherever the Catholic sun does shine, there's always laughter and good red wine.
Yeah, it's like, Exodus 90 is like the David Goggins Catholic. It's extreme.
Cold showers.
You can do more damage than good.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Separate from family life.
Take it easy on yourself, you know.
The next talk is on Exodus 90, isn't it?
Yeah. No, so go with the flow, you know, do what's easy. But just little gestures of love matter as much as anything else. And you'll find that if you cultivate a habit, that habit grows, you know. Just praying in the office with you guys this morning was such a beautiful experience for me because I try and pray the office every day, and it's lovely to do it with other guys, you know. I'm a member of the Catenians. Paul here is a really stalwart member of the Catenian circle that I go to. I'm not a great advocate of the Catenians, unfortunately, but it's. But one of the best things about it is praying the De Profundus together. You know, if you go to a circle where you've got 40 guys praying the De Profundus together, it's absolutely a powerful thing. You know, so praying together as men is a wonderful experience. But cultivate those little habits in your own life. But the idea, obviously, is that we're trying to create a stable environment where prayer is normative. Prayer is something that goes on, that we speak to Jesus. It's not a weird thing to do. It's something that we do in our families, yeah? So, I had to get a Crusader in there. Will was badgering me. If it was up to Will, every slide would have been Crusaders. So, this is for you, Will. So, where is it leading us? Where is this path to mature manhood leading us? You know, you cannot overestimate the legacy that you are leaving for your children, the effect that you have as a father on your children. And I think everyone who's spoken, like Sam and Gavin, will have echoed that. You know, it is really important. And I don't need to tell you that. You've all got your own relationships and the complexities that come along with that. But all I would say is be better fathers, you know, be better husbands. Be the best that you can be. And don't blame, it's not the kid's fault, it's not your wife's fault, it's your responsibility. So pick up that cross and do the best you can with what you've been given. Also, that is a form of evangelization in a massive, massive way. If other men see you behaving in this way, if they see you being faithful, raising a family in the faith, that inspires other men to do it as well, which is why this is such an important event and such an important thing to do, just for us to be here together, to support each other and to let each other know that we're on the same journey, we're on the same wavelength. That's absolutely essential. Also, every man needs the blessing of his father. Every man needs that. It makes such a difference. As someone who never got it. I'm speaking as someone who never got it. But there's nothing more important, I don't think, to us than having your dad be proud of you. And it's something that we all sort of try and live up to. And if we don't, we go down Freud's route, as Gavin was saying, and become bitter and hateful, and that leads to all kind of poison in our lives. But we're lucky because even if our own dads weren't the models that we, you know, would like them to be, and, you know, I very much I pray for my dad, and I look at it as I know what it could have been. I know what my father could have been because I've got God the Father in my life, because I've got my faith. And so it's very important that we look to the best possible scenario and we do our best. We're not going to get it right. We all get grumpy. I'm renowned for being extremely grumpy. But, you know, we give it a... Look, you're not even one of my children, Abbott. So think about ways that you can bless and affirm your children. You can pray with them, listen to them, Walk with them. Spend time with them. Time is the most important thing. But think about ways that you can affirm your children. And then you can break that cycle if that's something that's a problem for you. Okay, last slide. How long have I been going? No one's asleep, so that's a good thing. Okay, so the key points. What have we looked at here? We've looked at the long-lasting pain and damage that's caused by paternal abandonment, the importance of a mature faith in helping us to be better fathers. We've looked at the way that we can look to St. Joseph, intercession as our patron. We've looked at developing good habits and passing them on to our sons and daughters. And I want to encourage you all to embrace your roles. There's nothing toxic about your masculinity. You are protectors, you are providers, and you are spiritual leaders. So go out there and be good men. Thank you very much.